I think that's what's most important for children all this time. And you know, it's like me, okay, when I had my son, I think it was like 29 years ago. I'm talking about my second son. The first son I loved him, but I'm talking about my second son. Then I had my daughter, you know, and then we were playing just like you've got a happy family. I've got a girl and a boy here. And we used to have absolutely amazing times together, you know. But then sometimes I had to sort of go to work early in the morning, you know, and then come back late at night and all this kind of stuff, you know. And then sometimes I picked them up from school, whatever, you know, and then I put them to bed, whatever, you know, and then they're sleeping, you know. I didn't really rarely saw them, do you know what I mean? Sometimes I really hated being at work. I wanted to be home with my children, honestly.
Of course, yeah.
You know, but that's kind of like taken away from us again, do you know what I mean? I was kind of like angry that I was, you know, I had to earn money to pay my bill.
Yeah. But
I can do what I want to do, like, and that was just, I mean, if I come into a lot of money, just like everyone else, lots and lots of money, and you can buy a house, yeah, you don't have to go to work anymore, and you can get things ready for your children, sort your house out, right, and then as soon as, you know, your children are kind of belong to you in a kind of way, I feel like, when you're richer, you know, I feel, you know, money does alter things a bit, doesn't it, you know, and I feel like even everyone's got a different attitude towards money, you know, and everyone, if they're rich, depending on who they are,
yeah,
because they've all had a different upbringing, a different understanding, you know, they're going to spend it differently, you know, or, you know, it's just, this is the world we're living in, you know, do you know what I mean? Like I say, today, we're living in a world where people are free to get rich.
Yeah.
And there's no laws on saying, hang on, you're only allowed to have one house.
Yeah.
Or two houses, or, you know, one house in this country and another one in that country, mate, do you know what I mean? You know, there's just no rules, you know, it's like anyone, you know, anyone can be rich enough to sort of, I don't know, you know, do you know what I mean?
But at the same time, I agree with you, but at the same time,
it's just no rules.
but on the flip side, should we punish people for...
Don't punish them.
No, I mean, but what I'm saying is, should we punish people for their hard work too? If, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because
but, you know,
at the same time, you've got people that do come from nothing.
Yeah, but it's the same thing.
And then obviously build up their wealth from nothing and end up becoming quite very successful and having obviously multiple properties and businesses. And
I just think, you know, to me, the human race needs balance, you know. And I think, like, if you sort of put kind of the maximum wage, like I have spoke about it in a previous episode, I think. Yeah. I think it would just sort of like put a rule on everyone. You know what I mean? Everyone needs to be governed, and some people aren't being governed here in a kind of way, you know, because, you know, like I said, there's no rules. There's plenty of rules around man, all right, yeah, but not many rules around money, really, so much. Do you know what I mean? And I think there should be more rules around money.
Yeah.
To control everyone.
Yeah.
Even the rich, you know, even the rich need being controlled. And, you know, like if you put a maximum wage, they can still earn their money. They're still happy. And an acre of land is too much anyway. You know, like me personally, I used to have a garden with my wife, my ex-wife, and children. Used to love it, you know, beautiful garden I had.
Yeah. Then
I lost it. And I was really sulking about it for a few years, you know, sulking for a number of years because I lost my wife.
Yeah.
And it really hurt me. I wanted to be with my children, you know, even more, you know. Even when I was going to work, I was suffering because I wanted to be with my children, you know, I love my children. You know, I'm a very compassionate man.
But yeah, I think everyone's childhood essentially almost, without a shadow of a doubt, shapes your adulthood. You know, your future. You know, and according to science as well, according to going back to the whole, you know, thing of science and psychology, apparently the first 7 years are the most pivotal in a young child's life. Apparently, those first 7 years is absolutely essential. The way they're looked after, the way they're loved, the way they're cared for.
Right.
You know, the way they're fed, because of course that's very important. Their nutrition, etc. You know, everything that encompasses, you know, a young child's life. All those first 7 years is so important. Of course, obviously, going forwards is important too as well. But according to science, because of the way the mind develops and the brain develops, those first 7 years are critical in making sure that you're providing the right environment, the right circumstances for the child to grow up in a happy, healthy home, you know. Yeah.
I mean, I'm someone that loves my children with my heart, okay, my own children.
Yeah.
I also love your children.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love all children actually out there, yeah. And you know, if they do something wrong, I kind of think, well, they've probably they've got bad parents or something.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel there's nothing worse. You know, I've seen it a couple of times, you know, in my past, where I went on a holiday somewhere in London, or when I was living in London, sorry.
Yeah.
Once there was this woman, you know, and she's with this really young girl.
Yeah.
Only like 3 or 4. And she was really rough with her, you know, swearing at her and all this kind of stuff. You know?
I hate to see that.
Oh, you know, it's just like a dumb, basically a, I don't know, do you know what I mean? And it hurts me because, you know, you're in a situation where you can't really say much.
Well, I see it sometimes, because obviously I do the school run, obviously, as you know, because I stopped for a little while because my son has started going independently, but now my daughter started school. I take her every morning, if you see it. I mean, not every morning, but 3 days, 3 days a week when I'm not working, and then my wife does the other couple of days, the other 2 days. But I occasionally see it sometimes on the school run where, you know, children are walking too slowly behind their parents, or they're not doing what they're told, and sometimes the behaviour of the parents, mate, I think to myself, God, sometimes I think to myself, don't get me wrong, I'm not a very I try not to be a judgmental person, but I think to myself, I'm glad that I'm not that type of parent. That's the thought that goes through my head. I'm glad I'm not that type of parent, that when my children are naughty or do something wrong, if they're very naughty, don't get me wrong, they'll go for a timeout, you know what I mean? They'll go and sit or stand in a corner for 15-20 minutes and, you know, think about what they've done wrong, and, you know, then afterwards they have to come back and, you know, we'll talk about it, and, you know, they'll have to apologise and etc. if they're out of order, really out of order, that is. But otherwise, I just talk to my children. You know, I don't really chastise them too much. I don't shout. I don't feel there's a need for that, for shouting and carrying on and being physical discipline. Really, you know, children are very smart. You know, people sometimes underestimate, you know, the intelligence of children. You can talk to your kids and they will be able to understand right from wrong and why. And also, if you explain to them. Not only tell them not to do something, but to explain to them why you're telling them not to do something, why you think it's in their best interest not to do whatever it is that you're asking them not to do, then it helps them to have a deeper level of understanding. Sometimes children become rebellious when parents just go no, if you see what I mean, without actually saying, you know, this is my reasoning behind saying no, this is my logic behind saying no. Don't get me wrong, as a parent, you feel like you shouldn't have to explain yourself to a child. I do understand that, and sometimes I feel like that sometimes with my children too. Sometimes I have to say to my son, listen, you know, stop talking back, you know, I've told you to do something. Now, you know, and sometimes he wants to talk back sometimes, and I have to say to him, listen, right now you're being impolite, you're being rude. You need to be quiet, it's time to go and do what I've asked you to do, if you see what I mean. I don't have to shout and carry on, but I've told him in a stern way, listen, I've said to you repeatedly to do something, you've not done it yet, and now I'm telling you to do it once again, and you want to talk back to me, no, that's not going to happen. It's time to, it's time to be quiet and do what I've asked you to do, simple as that. Because a child should also know a child's place, if you see what I mean, and understand that parent has a job to do in terms of raising the child and instilling certain things within the child. So yeah, I think sometimes, like I said, sometimes I know we feel as parents we shouldn't always have to explain ourselves, but I think sometimes explaining yourself sometimes in some circumstances does help a child to understand why you're telling it not to do something, rather than just being, very hasty about it and very blunt about it, just go, no, I don't want you to do it, because that's tend to be, especially when you're a young child especially when you're going into your teenage years, you tend to be a bit more rebellious, and, you know, as soon as someone tells you, you know, no to something that you really want to do, you know, straight away, without any explanation or anything, you feel automatically you kind of, you know, you want to rebel and do it anyway, you know, you want to do your own thing and have your own way, you know, but sometimes, explanation does help, you know, so, yeah.
You've got to give them discipline, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
But children, exactly, and like I said, I think I've in the 11 years that my son, you know, my son's going to be 11 soon, you know, by the grace of God, and I think I've had to hit my son twice, and both times were literally just a smack, just a little smack, like just a little tap, like don't do that. And for my daughter, I think once, she's 5, once, and that was just a little smack on the hand, like don't do that. You don't do that. It's
like,
naughty.
Like that,
yeah.
like a little.
Just a tap, like a tap.
Like
a.
Like this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're not even like that, but just a little bit harder, but kind of like just a little, don't do that. Just a slight sting to it, if you see what I mean. But just to say, don't do that.
To give it mark.
But apart from that, like you can even my son, I always say to him all the time, like growing up, I used to get because he even says to me like I even said to him like one time, he said to me, oh, you've hit me in the past. I said, yeah, I've hit you. I've given you 2 smacks in 11 years. 11 years you've been alive, you've had 2 smacks in your whole life, and it's literally been a smack each time. Each time that it's happened, it's been a smack, not multiple smacks. It's been a little, don't do that, stop being naughty kind of smack. I had to explain to him like growing up, like I used to say to him, I used to get a lot more smacks than you used to get. I used to get the bloody, my mum used to get the wooden spoon out, the cooking wooden spoon, the wooden spoon out the drawer, and bloody give you a good old smack with it if you were a bit naughty, And growing up too, even growing up in the environment that I grew up in the Caribbean, I used to see other people's parents were a lot stricter than my mum was. If you see what I mean, their parents were really, they would naughty, step out of line. Physical discipline was definitely something that would happen. They would get So I had to explain to him, like, you've got it good, like, you've got parents who are understanding now and got, understand that physical discipline isn't always necessary or required, if you see what I mean. Whereas when we were young, we sometimes used to get, as soon as we stepped out of line, it was a, it was a smack, so.
Well, the other thing is, which is really important, is happiness.
Yeah.
Okay. There are quite a few people that live in our world today that are unhappy with their lives or the world, whatever.
Yeah.
There is quite a few people, especially with the price of living going up, right? It's not helping, is it? All that, it really pushes people to the limit. I'd say sometimes, And as I say, sort of some people got children, and they've only just left school. No philosophy at all about life, and they've got pregnant, in no time, thinking this is what was meant to happen in a kind of way, now I've got a family, some women, girls, whatever, they're 16 and they want a family, So I think, everyone's got a bit different, some girls want to have a career, everyone's got a different sort of mind frame in a funny way, I just find, like, talking about happiness here, like, a number of people getting frustrated out here. Or, it's like me, I was saying about me working, alright, and being frustrated because I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be at home because my children were there. At home. And all that kind of stuff. And I feel like a number of people feel this in the world. They get frustrated, angry, unhappy. They just want to be at home with their family, at the end of the day, But they can't be.
Have to sacrifice their time to provide.
But, like, when people get unhappy, they're not very good parents, are they, in a kind of way, if you're unhappy, alright, and you've got 2 children, that's dangerous, if you ask me, And then, this is a case, sort of like, I feel that, in society.
But I think also there are times as parents where you can feel unhappy, or you might feel a bit down, or you might not be feeling as cheerful as normal.
You might be sick.
But you can't allow, it's like even when you do your job, say for example, you might not go to work feeling the best one day, or feeling the brightest, or the most happiest that day, or as bubbly as you normally feel. But you try not to let it be seen, if you see what I mean, especially if you're going to be doing a job and you want to be like professional. And I think the same kind of things applies to when you're a parent and you've got kids. Like even when you're not feeling well, you still have to get up and ensure that your kids have eaten and had a bath, and they've looked at, they're okay, they're fine. If you see what I mean, they're still. You find somehow.
No, you're a good parent, Josh.
You find
you're good.
You have to not even even today, say for example, when I woke up, I felt a little bit grumpy, and I don't know why for some reason. If you see what I mean. But it soon passed. If you see what I mean, within waking up, having a cup of tea and get myself, have a shower and get myself ready or whatever. I was, it kind of passed, and I didn't, I just kind of wondered, what I felt, I think maybe because I had good, slept a bit longer than usual, maybe, or, just something just, I don't know why, I just woke up feeling a little bit, off, if you see what I mean. But you don't let that be seen by your kids. Like, as soon as I woke up and I saw my kids, like, they see you and go, oh, good morning, or whatever. It's like, yeah, good morning, give me a hug and a kiss, and, you don't allow them to kind of be affected by what you're feeling, if you see what I mean.
That's right,
You try to keep up that wall up so that you've got to stay strong for your kids.
You know yourself. Tomorrow you want to be a better person, better father. Hopefully,
Yeah, you want to stay strong for your kids.
You do become a better father. Every year that goes by, you get more experience every year, basically. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think your kids also pick up on that too, in a way too, and when they get older they kind of become a bit resilient too in their lives too. They realise that when they too become parents too, that part of it is being resilient. You have to, even on the days you're not feeling so happy, you still have to maintain, you still got to be upbeat and that, thing for your kids.
I mean, I remember having a toothache, right, and I was on holiday with my children, yeah.
That's awful.
And I was on my own, okay, because I was separated from my wife, and it was, I had a real job to focus, you know what I mean? My daughter was 6, and she was sort of, it was just difficult, but I feel like we all go through these things, but I feel like, it's all down to attitude or understanding, Some people are better at parenting than others, or understanding how to parent, or so on, some people are good parents and some people are bad.
Yeah.
That's dangerous, isn't it? When you've got bad parenting, really, because it's not helping those children, and the children are kind of like turning out wild and bad too.
Well, unfortunately, you've got people that have kids that don't want kids.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's lack of responsibility to a degree.
Some people might get pregnant with somebody they didn't want to be with.
True, but at the end of the day, how I look at it, right, is any as long as you're mature enough to be having sex and you know the ramifications of what comes behind having sex, and if you're not careful and you're not responsible and you end up having kids, then the reality is that you've got to be responsible enough that you want to be responsible enough to have sex. You've got to be responsible enough to be a parent. Sometimes people have. You see these programs today with these young kids. Teen mums, and all this type of shit. These young kids, 16-year-old having kids, and figuring it out. He has to leave school and go and get a job and do all this type of shit. But it's just a part of it. It's part of life. If you're gonna not be responsible and take precautions and there's consequences. Every action is a consequence, good or bad. There's a consequence. So.
I mean, to be honest with you, I'd love to do it all again. To be honest with you, if I had I'm not going to do it again because I'm too old. But if I had enough time, if our lifespan was a lot longer, say we lived 500 years, I could have another family. There's another one.
Even if you lived even if you got an extra 50 years, even an extra 50 years.
Well, just pretend we had.
Let's say
we lived 500 years, and then you had a family. You watched them grow up, and you said, "Well, we're separate now because I'm on another family, something else, and then another family, and you get more experience out of it, basically, like I say, when you have children, like for the first time, I can remember my oldest son being born, and I thought, wow, this is new, I'm a dad today, do you know what I mean? I'm a father for the first day, then it becomes a week, doesn't it? And then slowly,
time passes,
and then you kind of like mature with your children as it's really nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's kind of quite beautiful, actually, and it really hurt me to lose my bonds like I did with my children to this day.
You kind of, excuse me, you kind of grow with your children, don't you?
You do, you do, and I was so hurt by it, and I think they were, whatever, it is difficult.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, they're adults now, and they've had their childhood, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it's like, my childhood, my parents broke up, and I wasn't really aware of it really properly until I was about 13 or 12, so I mean, and started to become aware of it, basically,
Yeah, yeah.
It's not really until you're about 12 you start I think.
Yeah.
I think, you know, you start even thinking about other women, you know, other girls, whatever,
Yeah.
you know, a little bit.
Well, it's
Getting
funny
a
though.
bit of attraction.
It's funny, like even my son, bless him, like he said to my wife the other day. He said he was sat at school having lunch by himself. You know, he said usually he'll sit with his friends and whatever, but he just felt like he just wanted to be alone and just have a bit of quiet time and eat on his own. So he went and sat by himself before he went out, played a bit before going back into school during lunch. And he said to my wife, like he was sat there on his own having his lunch, and two girls just randomly came and sat next to him and were just staring at him the whole time he was having his lunch.
Embarrassed.
So he was feeling really embarrassed, bless him, and really. He even said to me, he even asked me one day, well, like, why? I said to him, like, you're a handsome young lad, you're getting older now. You're about, almost 11, and but I know you might feel a bit uncomfortable. You might feel a bit embarrassed about it because you're not really, you're just getting older now, and it's new. It's all new, if you see what I mean, to you, and you're not kind of ready for it yet. He's not really, focus on that type of shit at all yet, thankfully. He's focused on his studies and school.
It's coming in slowly though, isn't it?
It is.
It's growing, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
But it was funny because he said to my wife, like, she told me when I got home, she said to me, like, these girls just sat there during lunch staring at him, like, just the whole time. And he said,
like this?
Yeah, staring at him, and he said to them, like what? Like what? And they just smiled, apparently. He said they just smiled at him, both just sat there and smiled at him while he was eating his lunch. But that's so funny, just passive.
I mean, I think that's really it. Really, once you're basically capable.
Yeah.
Sexually, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's your childhood over, personally. Yeah. That's when you become an adult. I think in a funny way. That's how I class it anyway. That's the way you become kind of like you start becoming a man. If you know what I mean, or an adult. And that's your childhood over.
Start becoming a teenager.
Well, it's like basically caterpillars, how they sort of like go in a little
metamorphosize.
And then they come out as a butterfly. We kind of do the same thing.
Well, how I look at like the teenage years, right? I think a good analogy for the teenage years, just before we wrap up tonight's episode, I think a good analogy for the teenage years is like the transitional period. It's like you're transitioning from becoming a boy into a man. So like between that like 13 to like 18, those years, like you said, where the hormones start to develop, you start, and whatever else, like it's that transitional phase, isn't it? It's that transitional.
You
become from being a boy into a man.
You think about your own childhood,
a girl into a woman,
You think about your own childhood, when every year is different, isn't it? The first year you're not aware of nothing really, are you? And everyone's looking after you, loving you, getting a lot of love at that time. Normally anyway, all the time. I did anyway when I was a baby. I know that. I had my mum's sisters looking after me and all kinds of stuff. So I had quite a few mothers. I felt in a funny way.
Yeah.
But you get a lot of love the first year. You're really cute.
Yeah.
Cute. This sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then the next year you're still cute, but not so cute maybe, I don't know. And it's a little bit different because you're walking, you're crawling about that age, that's a different year now, you're on a new level now. Next year you're talking a little bit, and communicating maybe, and going into that world, And I just think every age, every year is kind of like a step in, different step. And we're still going through it a bit now, even to today, I'm 68 soon, I think. No, it's not 68, 58, sorry.
I was going to say,
Thank goodness for
yeah.
that. Thank goodness.
Correct yourself, mate.
Yeah. God, I'm glad I made that mistake there.
Yeah, 58.
I wouldn't want to be 68 right now.
58, mate, 58, yeah.
But even 58, I just felt like this year was different to the year before in a funny way, But, you don't realise, you realise, I know that even, I feel like I'm getting a bit more intelligent as I get older, a bit more wise out. They do say as you get older, you become a bit. Well, obviously you get wiser, don't you?
Well, hopefully.
Well, you do. I know I am getting a bit wiser. I know that I'm a lot wiser than I was when I was a child.
Yeah.
I feel like when I was a child, I had quite a big imagination. I used to play tricks and things. I used to get sort of like fishing wire and set up tricks. I made this ghost train once, right, and it because I had this sort of like allotment sort of thing or whatever, and I got all these crates and put these carpets over and put cobwebs in it and all kinds of things, right? And I got all my girls, you know, because I'm talking about when I was age 12, all my girlfriends, you know, they weren't my girlfriends, so, you know, they're my friends, and I got them to lay down on this thingy with wheels, and I pulled it through slowly.
Yeah.
Right, it's all dark in there, and I pulled it through. Right, so these girls lay down on my little crate, you know, sort of on this trolley with wheels.
Yeah.
I lay down on it and I pull it through, and these carpets would sort of come on their heads, and they, you know, you know, my friend helped me. His name was Julian Royal. You know, I remember him. He was a good friend of mine. You know, and we, you know, when I was out of school, I was having a good time. I was climbing walls, you know, and doing all kinds of things, you know. And sometimes when I jumped off the wall, or when I was running along, I scraped my knee.
Yeah.
Can you remember that? Like scraping your knee, you know. You know, it's just good, isn't it, your childhood, really. You know, you're not paying bills at that age, are you? You know, and you're not cooking dinner. It's all like, there you go.
Yeah.
It's all on a plate. You know?
Everything is kind
of
like
a king.
You're dependent.
Yeah, you're treated like a king and a queen. Well, you know, like I say, not all children are.
No.
And it's a shame, really. You know, I feel that's why schools are good in a way, because it saves children from bad parents.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
But I feel like schools themselves are a little bit of a disgrace.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you ask me, you know, there's bullying in them.
Yeah.
And that, you know, and all that, all fighting.
Yeah.
But no philosophy whatsoever. And you know, why is that? You know?
Sometimes, like even in today's modern age, you get like a lot of schools and a lot of teachers and stuff that will like try to push agendas on children as well. Certain agendas that a lot of the mainstream media are pushing and stuff. You'll get them pushing these type of agendas towards the kids today. This confusion agenda and all this type of stuff. You know.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Anyway, mate. Before we wrap it up and call it a night for this week's episode, all about
childhood.
Any final words? Any closing thoughts or statements? Anything you want to leave for the people?
Yeah. Just hope you enjoyed our show tonight. Really, you know, and just.
I think we would definitely have to do a part 2.
Yeah.
I think there's so much more we could both probably talk about.
Yeah, about toys. We didn't go into the toy world or nothing. You
No.
know, about like, I mean, when I was a little boy, there were soldiers and things like that. You know, like German soldiers and tanks, model tanks that you glue together.
Also, I think we could also talk a bit more about our personal experiences too when we were kids too, a bit more. If you see what I mean, we could have gone a little bit more in depth in regards to our own personal.
I think we did
things that have happened in our lives a bit more. You know,
I did a touch. You know, I did touch on it a little bit.
Because we've obviously both, you know, had quite eventful lives. You know, so.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I did enjoy my childhood. But I didn't enjoy being stuck in a classroom for hour after hour with things that I didn't really want to learn or know. Do you know what I mean? Or, you know, I just feel like if children are going to learn, the fastest way children can learn, for one, if they're happy.
Yeah. And
two, if they're not closed in a room. Children can learn better maybe in the outside a little bit, in the woods somewhere, you know, in open places.
Yeah.
You know, and I just feel that every child should have a garden, like I said. It's important, little garden, you know, so they can play at home. That, you know, I think it's important, you know, to a children's mind, you know, and I think that would make it a fairer world, really. Like you said earlier on, you know, it's not a fair world, and it's not, you know, and I think it's because, you know, there's no philosophy in school in a kind of way, you know, and it's kind of like, unfortunately, sadly, I feel that just so many, you know, even when I left school, honestly, I was so uneducated as a child, you know, about the real world around me, you know.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean. It's like, in a kind of way, I feel like they want children to be like that. They don't want to tell children about the real truth of the world or anything in a kind of way. If you see what I mean, you know.
Yeah.
They just want to put Christmas on every year, you know, and all this kind of stuff, and it kind of like brainwashes people from the truth sometimes, you know, all this kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
mean, Christmas, talking about Christmas, you know, I enjoyed that as a child. But now when I look at it, I think it's a bit of a joke, in a funny way, you know, but I can see why it's lovely for children, you know. I must admit I enjoyed it a lot, you know. Every Christmas I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you know, and couldn't wait to open my presents and things, you know. So excited. And it wasn't just Christmas Day, it was the next day, you know. You could play with your toys.
Yeah.
Didn't have to go to school, you see, and all that, you know. Didn't, you know, I was free, I was happy, you know. It's beautiful, you know. And then it's, oh no, God, you know, you've got to go back to school on Monday. You know, it's January 6th or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
I've got to wait for my summer holidays now, you know. You know, and that's what, you know. Can you remember like being a child yourself, you know, and summer holidays coming up, you know.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's leaving the school with their arms up like that, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I'm thinking, because they want to be free from prison.
Yeah.
In a kind of way. And they, you know, they've got 6 weeks of having a childhood now, you know, for a minute, you know, they can run around and do what they want. You know, it's like playtime, that, you know, 24 hours after, you know, I know they've got to do the sleep, but, you know, it's a bit of freedom for children, isn't it? Sort of summer holidays, you know.
Yeah.
It's quite beautiful, really.
It's true. Yeah.
So that's one good thing, summer holidays for children, they love that.
Yeah, definitely. We all enjoyed that as a child, definitely. Yeah. Anyway, guys, good night. God bless. We are the Philosophy Podcast. We'll be back again next week with a brand new episode, so please stay tuned for that, of course. Yeah. Good night.